like you think mountain, but when you live here down here near nothing but like beaches, right? It's kind of like you don't really realize the type of terrain that you guys were actually, hiking in, and trying to stay on a specific like time schedule, I would imagine, right? You had like so much time to get from each point of the expedition. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. Yes. Mhm. 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 Right. Yeah, and just seeing it was very interesting in some of those videos. It looked almost like a bomb went off in some of those areas. I mean, it almost looked like there was destruction, you know, because they just have just kind of torn that place apart. And can you explain a little bit like why they do that kind of, I mean, what causes them to kind of decimate certain areas? What Okay. Yeah, that's okay. I'll just Okay. Yeah, some of the areas in your videos, the air just it was so it just it appeared to just be like utter destruction. It was just like they tore up like just area, I mean, just trees everywhere, and just, I mean, why do you think that they do that type of behavior? Is it a hunting technique? Is it a keep people out kind of thing? What caused that? Hmm. 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 the, the point, yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, we do see that here in Florida. My son and I do, we research together, and we definitely see that here, and more along the lines of, they'll take trees and huge, gigantic trees and knock them over, and then the roots, they'll literally like sit behind that huge root ball and right next to a game trail. Like, we see some of those kinds of things here in Florida, but when I saw that on your channel, those videos, I was like, whoa, that was so mind blowing. I mean, some of those trees were over 100 foot long. I mean,
Yeah.
how big do you think the individuals there on that mountain are? Are they, I mean, upwards of 12, 13 feet or more?
Well, there we go. I'm sorry, I just got our other audio up for the KX channel.
It's
I'm going to
okay.
apologize again to them. They had video. You guys that were using Streamlabs for the first time, and apparently these settings were all off. So hopefully we're good on the audio on your end. Okay,
Yeah, I
so
hope.
yeah, we actually stepped a tree off at 110 feet with a 30-inch base. And
Yeah.
if you were to chop it off right at the roots, the tree would weigh 18,500. And so with the root mass that's on that, we guess another 600, 700, 800 pounds, something like that. So an individual that would carry that. So we work, a lot of scientific or, logic-based reasoning. So we don't take a lot of assumptions. So with an
Hmm.
animal versus a human being in size to strength ratio or mass to strength ratio, we could expect one 12-foot individual at max lift could potentially pick up that entire tree. Now,
Wow.
the wobble effect to it and things like that, it's up for supposition besides just what the numbers would say. But 20,000 pounds would be a deadlift strength for an animal that size.
Wow.
Now, two of them we figure of that size could carry and get those type of trees in there and set them down. So as far as cooperative effort is, we see also even sizes beyond what we show in the video. We've seen stuff bigger than that. So we assume that two or more get together to do a lot of that work. And
Mm.
who's deciding where to set it down and all that stuff. Who knows how the choreography of any of that goes. We assume that there's large alpha males who know what they want to do, and it's kind of like, hey guys, grab this log, let's go, and then they set up whatever
Mm.
trap or area. We also see where they've created kind of a fence-like structures to where they'll lay in a lineal fashion, kind of all one to the next to the next to the next. And I think a lot of human beings will look out across that and not even really notice it, even though they may expect us to notice it as a barrier, because in nature seldom ever does 8 or 10 or 15 trees lay root to top all the way down the line, even though it may turn and kind of go up over this and that. But it certainly stands out to anyone who's a naturalist in the sense that they're even just out there enough to know. Would be a woodsman or
Mm.
trappers and things like that would look at these and go, wow, that's weird, when even the common person might not and just step right over it and walk through. But I
Mm.
think a lot of it is that territorial boundaries. I think that they offer access points. From what we've seen, they apparently border walking trails and things. In other words, they're kind of, it seems to be where if you need to cross our territory or where our marked zone is here, go through here, and then you come out over there. Don't be wandering all over. So it's almost like that we've seen things that are marking routes of travel that they probably don't require, and those often right when they come to our routes of travel. So it's kind
Mm.
of interesting. I think that a lot of that is done because of our activity, trying to maintain a cooperative understanding out there.
Wow, I never really thought about it like that. I mean, yeah, I mean, okay, so in that particular area, do you think that there are several family groups that work together at times, or and it's kind of like this signals this is kind of everybody's territory, but then over here, like this is our group's territory. Do you think that that kind of thing happens?
Well, up on that mountain itself, it seems that we have what we would understand is mostly large male presence that come together, at least around the lodge face of that area. We do
Hmm.
know there's at least 2 family groups on the range, and we assume there's quite a bit more because there's certainly enough area, topography, and resources, game, and water spread out up there to handle, maybe 6 or 7 family groups, small family groups. When I say that, I mean 5 to 7, maybe 9, counting the infants and young and the elderly as well. And you could
Hmm.
you could have that many subjects up there real easy. You could actually probably, on that small piece of that range, you could probably go with even 100 to 150 individual subjects. Um,
Wow.
but we see where they're clustered and don't really move a lot. So whether it's on the side of the mountain or whether it's in the riparian zones like in the river bottoms and things like that that present more applicable resources, and habitat for them to be in. What either one that it is, they don't seem to move much when they're in the family groups. It's basically hunker down, stay a little bit spread out within a very confined area, and then just kind of smooth through as a group without usually coming together, where you have a group of units. They'll usually
Hmm.
stay a little bit separated and they kind of move through the terrain like that. But generally, it's not very far. They have a resource area. They'll kind of move around, or, they may, if it's on the side of a mountain, they may go one canyon to the next, to the next. And in that way, they're not depleting their resources. And naturally, you would, as you consumed what was there, you'd move to look for something else. So,
Yeah. So are you finding the same types of behavior though when you do research in other areas other than just that particular mountain range? I mean, is
hmm
there,
yeah, and
you're finding?
it's usually based on topography more than it is regionally. So
Hmm.
when we went all the way to the Upper Peninsula in Michigan, completely different stuff. Real no considerable elevation changes at all. No real rock outcroppings and things like that. Dense, most of it regrowth, deciduous forest with some regrowth pine mixed in, and but we still see a lot of the same behaviors. So it was still possible to predict where a group would be
Hmm.
overall, based on whatever the topography was and whatever
Right.
was there. So if you have a swamp, well, you're probably going to be on the southern end of the swamp, and you're going to be where the least amount of snow falls and the most warmth is maintained, or maybe where there's reeds and things like this. So you kind of know,
Hmm.
well, they're liable to be here more than anywhere else because this is where you could kind of be winter and summer both. So even in their marking of corridors or the way they mark the places they're staying or they're habituating at that time, so they tend to like break little twigs and things like that. So we see the very same things, 1,550 miles, up in the Midwest or down in the South, or we go up into Utah, and same thing. We're able to pick them up, get them on them, track them pretty quick because they're still
Hmm.
doing the same thing.
Hmm.
Naturally, I think there's overall behavioral differences, even between like the Four Corners region in northwest New Mexico versus where we are and other places. They can be very aggressive, and the same is actually, I guess, here in around Tucumcari we are. There are stories of them here, and they've all been pretty bad. And they get a lot of aggressive behavior on the res, and there's aggressive behavior in the Sandia Mountain Range where we did the lodge stuff. But when we get into some other areas around Pecos, New Mexico, and down the group we work south of Santa Fe, and those guys, they're real docile, timid. They don't seem to do a lot. Of course, the big male in that group is a little different. He apparently doesn't like people. He's pretty aggressive in nature. He's never been very friendly about the way he's presented himself in the only times I've been around him. So
Hmm. Now, is that, I know that in one of your videos you talk about George. Is that George's father that you're talking about that's
yeah,
can be aggressive?
that would be the alpha male,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we never really named him, only because we don't really give him a name until we kind of familiarize ourselves enough that naturally you come to that conclusion. You just come to a
Right.
name, because when you see the same
Hmm.
guy showing up time after time after time, you get it
Right.
gets almost a
Right.
characterization. You can tell who's leading
Sure.
the pack and who's running around with who and who's causing the
Hmm.
trouble and who's not. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, we hadn't been around the father much before I did run into him, and it took a lot of years even to find tracks of him. And then the day after we did, yeah, I ran into him and he wasn't very nice. And George had acted a lot different around him than he ever did before. So, in the 6 or 7 years previous to that happening, George was
Hmm.
always real mellow, inquisitive, a little bit playful. Never was, serious or gruff. But we noticed around the dad afterwards, when we went in and analyzed the situation based on the trace evidence, like the prints, and we realized who was doing what, and George was completely acting different. Yeah, he was.
Interesting.
Yeah, he had to bow up and be tough, and
Right.
don't be so nice to the people around dad. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He had to kind of like step up a little bit and show
Hmm.
what he's made of to dad first. Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
which tells us how
Yeah.
dad feels about people, because if that's how
Right.
he needed to alter his behavior, then he already knows that people are not good. Dad doesn't like him, and
Yeah.
that's how he acted when he finally grunted at me to let me know that the
Like,
situation was over. Yeah,
mhm.
you could certainly tell. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Here in Florida, we really don't, they seem to be pretty docile here as well. Not, very aggressive.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it's interesting that in different places they have different, I don't, and it, they have different, um, you know, obviously they have different personalities, and everybody always likes to say, well, human beings we're all different, right? So of course they all have their own different personalities and things. But I think that's an interesting point that you make, though, that they, they may be wanting to reach out to us and interact with us, but if they have, an alpha male that's not into that for whatever reason, maybe they had a very negative encounter with a human being
Hmm.
before, and that makes them very leery and cautious and that kind of thing. So it's interesting, though, that there is that separation a little bit. It makes you wonder if maybe someday, individuals like George will be able to interact with us more, and we'll learn more about their behavior and learn more about them as people.
Well, I guess there's the potential. There's always the potential. Even culturally, with modern humans, sometimes to break that paradigm is pretty tough. Cultural
Yeah.
bias and peer pressure is between in higher species is extremely important. We even see it in canines and
Hmm.
felines and all that too, and it tends to govern their life, because what is the benefit overall to presenting yourself that way to a species when your
Hmm.
entire species outside that doesn't act that way? There's no true benefit for you to do that. So,
Right.
so why step over the line if it's just going to cause you a lifetime of grief? Now we see modern humans doing that in a lot of ways, um, but generally not in ways that would have them socially completely kicked out or something like that. So, and when they do, well, they keep it secret. So I
Hmm.
think that potentially a lot of the interactions we have are that want to bridge the gap. But just like often you have people that keep things sacred, I think they do too. I think a lot of the little interactions are things that they're doing outside of a necessarily a clan or group's behavioral pattern, or maybe even acceptance. That may be a no-no to the group, and then the young ones still want to go over and throw stuff at the campers and
Right.
have that little bit of an interaction. So, and I think
Hmm.
that's what most people get to experience. I don't think they get to experience the older, mature adults, things like this, who keep basically their species alive by being completely elusive. In other words, there is no
Hmm.
time where they see the sense in making that contact, because they probably are aware of the potential adverse reaction to that contact is never probably worth it in their point of view.
Right. Yeah.
It could end their whole family or whatever. So
Hmm. Hmm. So do you feel like that the Sasquatch are, I'm trying to think of how I want to say it. Like, do you believe that they're more than just primates? Do you believe that they're more than just flesh and blood? Do you think there's more to them?
well, yeah, but I also think there's more to us, and I think there's been more to
Yeah.
every human that's ever walked. Um,
Good point. Good
and
point.
it's possible there's more to most of the animals, if not all of them.
Hmm.
You get right down to it, in the basis of things. Let's take it all the way to the extreme, is usually where you find your truths and you can bring them back. But we're just basically all compressed light. We're all energetic
Right.
particles, and
Right.
that's
Right.
everything is. So where does
Yeah.
the actual line get drawn, other than in our opinion? So first you have to
Hmm.
draw and separate us all from that, to believe that anything that is more in tune with that is different, when really it's what we all are. Just because
Right.
we or other organisms or whatever don't operate by that, or whatever, is no indication that we're not still all part of that same fluid dynamic,
Hmm.
of energy and identity and all this. So I believe we're all the same in that way. Um, with human beings, to do the spectacular often or always requires the release of the ego, and which most people can't really do. Even when
Yes.
they think they're doing it, they're still not doing it.
Yes.
So if you looked at a cup and said, "Cup, move," and you truly believed it would move, it surely would move. And the simple fact that we don't believe things so much, we're so in tune with designing and so in tune with infiltrating our ego into everything, that we make decisions whether a cup should move or shouldn't move, things like that. When the natural thing without that would be just to move the cup. And that's what we found in most everything. So martial arts, or even the second wind, things that scientifically can't be explained, how the body can put up a certain amount of punishment or have a certain amount of strength and things like that. What they really find is it's about belief and the absence of questioning what's happening. And so when we look at it that way, if a being with the same connection and intellect but didn't have that ego to override the belief, what could it naturally do? And that's what I think that we come up to. And I don't know if we lost you completely off the stream or not. Looks like it. I think for my people, everything's still on. So yeah, sorry guys, sorry about the first few minutes of the show. We recalled the damage in the lodge area that we featured on the video, and just kind of went over the potential reasons that they would have done those type of activities. Other than that, really the only thing you missed was some of my introduction and background, which you guys have probably, most of you have heard before. So anyway, yeah, and it's the first time I'm using Streamlabs, which is pretty crazy. I don't know if she'll pop back in here, or if she said she was having some issues with her internet. So, but anyway, yeah, so we're using Streamlabs for the very first time. Um, Paid, this is a paid deal. We have to pay for this service. It's supposed to be a lot better, and it kind of jumps on the back of the other OSB that we had before, or our OBS, and just kind of host it, but it didn't host all the settings. So since I'm also using StreamYard at the same time, it did not want to accept my cam, and yeah, I'm talking, and it didn't want to accept my cam, and it didn't want to then accept my microphone. But I guess we're figured out. So if I'm not sure what'll happen with this, I'm watching the studio to see what's going on here, and I really don't know. Sorry, you guys, really don't know how to get her back, or if it's possible to get her back, because she's the one who set up the studio. I would assume she can just blip back in whenever she chooses. Not, I could show you some files, I guess, from the new expedition, since we're here. Well, let's hit the live chat. What do we got going on the phone here?
Okay, we're
Hey,
back.
we're
Okay.
back. Sweet.
Oh my gosh.
That's all right. On my end, I just kept talking, so you're good.
Thank you. And then I couldn't even find it again. I couldn't find the stream. I couldn't find, it wasn't letting me in. I was like,
No.
ah.
Yeah, and I didn't see any setting to allow you or not since you set it up, so we just stuck around and hoped you'd be back. Well, I guess there we go again. At least they got us with a picture this time. That's a little better. So there's no telling, using these streaming software, there's no telling what she's got going on. Pretty interesting. So anyway, Explorer FLQ, thank you very much. Ranger On, thank you very much. Ryan Merrick, appreciate that. And it's good to see everybody tonight. Les Snow, Sherry Haggerty, Chris, Cryptic Crystal, Gorilla Girl, Marty Dominguez, Mark Bichette. Yeah, it's good to see. Wow, thank you, Terry Foster. Sweet.
I don't know what the heck is going on tonight.
I love it. I love it. Just kick that imposter out over there, and we'll be good to go.
Holy cow! Oh my gosh! Thank you again, guys in the chat. I am so sorry, and everybody watching now and in the future, my apologies. We're having squalls coming through from these storms. And the internet's kind of just fluctuating really badly here. It's going kind of in and out. So my apologies to everyone.
Oh, and don't feel bad. You should see the problems we've had in the past. So, yeah, we've heard other people talking on my stream, and we didn't even know who they were. And then they cussed and said, "Oh," and then they shut the thing off. So it was pretty wild. So you never know what's going on in the background.
You never know. The digital world, right? Yeah. All this technology is just,
modern convenience. You gotta love it.
Yeah, that's right. I can't even remember where we were in our conversation, but I did want to ask you, do you still feel like the expedition to the Kill Zone Lodge, do you still feel like it was a success? Because I definitely felt like it was. And do you guys plan on going back?
Yeah. First part of the question, I certainly do. Matter of fact, I don't think we really missed anything that was the planned intention. A lot of people responded in a manner as if they had been led to believe that finding the lodge was a prerequisite, that we were going to be able to do that, and that was a portion. That's what we had hoped. But what, as we said from the beginning, what we wanted to do was document what the big ones do, and the evidence of cooperative efforts to do big things, to show a scale that I don't think a lot of people understand, because they haven't envisioned this scale before. So scale is one of those things when we look at size that are hard to comprehend until we actually see it. So to understand how big the big ones get, how much they'll put into something, like moving a single tree would be a tremendous effort, yet moving hundreds of these trees, or just doing it commonly like it's just what you do, I think that tells another story and pushes the entire understanding to another level, basically, because we see them in one way or the other, and we comprehend them in one way or the other, and people see them making stick structures and messing with trees that are 10 inches thick or a foot thick, and that's a big deal, and it blows our minds. Well, if our minds are blown by that, where do we set our limits with the creature? And then, so what we wanted to do is bring to the table something that showed you those limits don't exist there. Those limits far exceed that. And it also gives another validation to those people who are maybe on the fence to, okay, what's in the forest? Because you can come up with any logical reason you want, and you won't have anything in the end when it comes to what placed and how those trees got in those positions. There just isn't one. It wasn't a helicopter. It's not any type of mechanical device whatsoever. Yet here we have 18 and 20,000 pound trees, thrown in there like pixie sticks. And I wasn't able to show all of it because of what, the video, because you only can put out so much. But I think if people watch as we're progressing through the woods and things, and I'm panning around, they can get gravity to just in how much has been done. And, that's just a fraction. And granted that the, whole mountain ranges aren't that way. And where I'm taking people is into a hot spot for that type of activity. But it's not like it's just right there, 100 feet wide. They're doing this in many areas on these mountain ranges. And it's, unfortunately for most people, what you have to do to get to these places is pretty extreme. They're not doing it generally in places where people go. They're a little bit trapped on this mountain range, but like I said, at the same time, they've maintained their secrecy through either completely blocking out the trails and creating areas that when people go into them, they turn around and go back out, because we all understand something's going on in here and it's big and beyond me. And so, and besides making a lot of those people disappear. So
Do you guys see in that area a lot of other predators, bears, mountain lions? Do you guys see things like that there still?
yeah, generally not so much bear. So there are bear all over in that range, but they generally don't share the same living room, so to speak. They might share the same yard, but not the same living room with the Bigfoots. Big cats go pretty much anywhere they want to. That's quite a bit different. So we do see big cat activity right through the heat of where they're at. Maybe not as prolific, but if cat are following deer and deer go through there, the cat's going to follow them. And to me, it tells me that they're probably leaving the cats alone as long as the cats leave them alone. But bear don't seem to want to stay around them whatsoever, from what we can see. So
That's interesting. Why do you think that is? Do you think
it's just the way cats are. So mountain lions will cruise through neighborhoods behind your foliage and your cars and everything else, and no one has a clue that almost no one even understands that's in their normal behavior to do that. And we seldom see them. I think it's just part of that same thing. And it's it doesn't pay to really, if the cat's not disturbing your herds to the point or whatever, it's better just to leave things alone. I'm sure that, if a cat catches wind of one or whatever, I doubt that there's conflict. I would imagine it just goes the other way. But you know how cats are. Cats push it. And if it doesn't work this week, they'll come back next week and try and go a little farther. So it's just how cats are,
That's true.
Yeah, bears are a little more paranoid. So
even my cat's like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I should be a kitty behavioral specialist. I tell you what.
Yeah, and a turtle saver.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was really cool, and I really thought that was amazing that you did that. Who would have thought to even do what you did? I don't know if anybody saw on Facebook, and I think you even put a video on your channel too, right?
Yeah.
About how you repaired the turtle shell and.
Yeah, and thanks to Tara for finding him, and bless her heart, she's not going to just drive by and leave him there in the road like everybody would. So, what are you going to do? When your love shows up with a turtle, it's crushed, and you got tools in the shop. What are you going to do? So,
you got to fix it.
Plus I love all the little animals, more than anything in the world. So, I'll do whatever I can to try to save anything that's suffering. So,
of course. So, do you plan on going back to the Kill Zone Lodge? Do you plan on trying it again?
Yeah, we were going to actually hoping for October to do that, and I'm not really sure. So I've got a couple other things going, but we want to. So it won't be probably publicized as much. It won't be hyped as much because usually most people know me. I usually don't do a whole lot of that before we do things, and that was in consideration of other people who were involved. And which I thought was great, and we participated, and it was wonderful. This will probably be a little quieter, but we do intend on doing it a little less formal. I think the people that'll be involved won't necessarily require quite the preparation. Most of them are already prepared and geared up and physically ready. So
it'll be a little different team this time around.
Yeah, it'll be a little different gig and done a little different way.
Gotcha.
A little more like we usually do stuff, a little more direct, a little more formal. And we can kind of be hard on guys in a way, and I think we might have hurt some people's feelings or whatever. But when like we maintained since the get-go, we seldom do anything like it's a standard camping trip and everyone's going to just enjoy themselves and things like that. We tend to be a little more hard-nosed about it, and we don't mean to be militant in any way, but we're trying to get something done, and that can. Being that kind of hardcore can offset some people. So the group we're taking up now, they all respond to that type of system very well. And don't get me
Mm-hmm.
wrong, we mess up like a bunch of drunk monkeys out there, and we're fun and we mess with each other. But
Right.
when there's a job to do, we make sure we get it done.
Exactly, exactly. It's a mission. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a mission, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's something that it has to be taken seriously. It has to. People's lives depend on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're not going up there camping out. You're going up there on a mission, and it's dangerous. It's
Mm-hmm.
dangerous terrain. I mean, just going on a day hike, you could roll your ankle and you're in trouble.
Oh yeah, and when you're working on a trail where
So,
verified through the USFS, Ron's watching, and he verified, 37 people came up missing in 3 years, and only 4 were ever found. And
wow.
those on that, and it's on that specific portion of that trail. There's a good reason for that. And when we see those
Mhm.
massive damage areas and those giant logs and all these things, that's why all that's there. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it's pretty rugged. And I want to mention we just did an expedition in the high mountains of Colorado too. We just spent 7 days
Mhm.
up there, and had some pretty good luck. And nothing like the damage areas of the lodge, stuff like that. But we did really well.
Mhm.
Got to
Mhm.
film my shine of a couple guys peeking at us and whatnot, prints and the
Cool.
general. But yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't wait to get back to the lodge area, because that's more the gravity that I like to bring to the table. I like to step up each time we tried something. Why are we doing it?
Right.
And so that has a purpose that needs to get completed. I think that, we did,
Mhm.
like I said, we did the mainstay, which was to document and show that they're there, what they do, how they act, things like that. But the other portion of that is the main hopes from the drive was to go in and be able to find out what the heck the lodge feature is, whether it's just a
Right.
giant pile of trees with dirt on it. If it is, how the heck did it get there anyway? What is this thing? Who put it there? What is it? Or at the most, could it actually be a structure
That
with,
they're using for
yeah.
some specific
Yeah, and
purpose.
that's the question. It's not to go up and prove, hey, I found this
Mhm.
lodge thing. We call it the lodge feature
Right.
because that's what it looks like. It looks like a beaver lodge.
Wow.
But it's to find out what the heck it is and try to get to the basis of the bottom of that. So,
I mean, people talk about, structures and things, and I've seen some of them, very unbelievable photos of some structures that people have found, and the intricate weaving and placement, and some of them that I've even seen on other people's channels where it seems like, I don't know, maybe they took one sapling, and they, as it was young, one branch is going this way and one branch is twisted and going that way, and it's
mhm.
kind of, it's like very intricate things that they do,
Mhm.
and artistic almost, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so to see something like that looks like a beaver lodge on the side of a mountain, is that's not there for no reason. I can't imagine they would do something like that on the side of a mountain just to do it. I mean, I don't, there
Yeah.
has to be some
Well, our
purpose
question,
to
the
it.
number one would be, is that what did it? Of course,
Yeah.
we have all the sign, all the normal sign around it. The
Hmm.
tree horizontal to the ground, woven in, 45, 50-foot long, woven in 25 feet above the ground, like in a way that you couldn't pull it out with a truck. And that's right above it and right near it, I should say.
Hmm.
So when we see these, it's like collaborating details. So when we see these things that are associated to each other,
Hmm.
and then we see a big pile like that, and then there's all the boughs from the forest for some reason on top of that as well, and it's not done by loggers. And
Right.
then there's dirt placed on top of a bunch of that as well. And we see
Hmm.
something that anomalous out there. That's the big question: is what in the hell is that? Why is
Right.
it associated with the stuff that we attribute to big Bigfoots? Is this as well? If that's what that is, if they did that, then what in the world did they do back here? And
Yeah.
that's the big thing. And it's a nagging question. It really is. I've even
Yeah.
even been accused by people saying, "Oh, the lodge doesn't exist. That was a bunch of stuff for hype." But that's fine. Whatever you want to believe is cool. You'll notice that there's not a single person I've ever worked with in the last however decade or more that's questioning that when we come out and say that, because they've worked with
Hmm.
us and they know we don't do that. So
Right.
and it's going to go from there. It is intriguing. It's potentially exciting. It may not be exciting. We may get down there and
And you,
see something else that happened that's anomalous, that's weird, that created this. something
Right.
odd that we can't account for yet, that
Hmm.
we might find a mundane reason for. But from
Hmm.
all
Hmm.
sign what we can see right now, it's certainly something that needs to be investigated. So,
Right. I ask every one of my guests this same question, and when you're out and you're researching in these types of areas, whether it's in Colorado, whether it's in the Upper Peninsula, Michigan, whether you're in New Mexico, wherever, when you're out there doing these kinds of expeditions and research, are you also finding paranormal things, maybe orbs or lights or things like that, EVPs? And a lot of researchers, talk about getting that. Not that they're out there looking for those things, but they end up coming across those things in their research.
yeah, no, we certainly do. I don't think you could spend an immense amount of time out there, in different areas, especially the more remote, the more hidden, or the more rugged,
Hmm.
and not basically experience what's out there. It's law of averages, and so much time is going to end up. So when people say, "Well, I spent all my life in the mountains," but it's what were you doing? Well, I was logging
Hmm.
and I was doing all this. Right, you were logging and didn't notice what was happening. Who knew you were running a chainsaw? You're running a logger. You're running a skidder. You're doing heavy equipment. You're doing oil field work or power line work or whatever you're doing. Seldom are there people who just go out there and spend that much time just to be out there, and
Hmm.
potentially in exploration work your head's on a swivel because that's what you're doing. Well, even if it's ancient history, you're looking at every single rock for a mark. You're looking at anywhere that someone may have manipulated the ground all the way around you all the time.
Hmm.
Doing that, what else are you going to notice? You're constantly looking. That's what you're there to do. So playing
Right, right.
as a professional, like an observer, basically a pro observer, you're and being out there that much, you're gonna experience whatever's out there.
Right.
Then as well, there's not going to be a lot of stuff out there that you're not going to come across at one point or another. Being that way, you certainly could be out there all your life as a miner, an oil field worker, or like we said, or even a USFS officer or whatever, because
Hmm.
they all have their different jobs to do. Not everybody is out there doing that. Now, somebody that might be counting birds or something, they may experience more naturally because they're in, again, an observational position, right? So we've experienced just about everything, especially doing the ancient history and things like that. If you think that there's a lot of orbs associated with Bigfoot, you should do treasure. I don't know of any famous treasure site that there's not lights and orbs associated with the site. It's just like
Really?
Oak Island. How did they know something was weird on Oak Island? Watching lights bob around through the trees. That's what led them to that entire thing, was lights being seen
Wow.
on the island, and we see that in lots of areas. So I think that the anomalous portion of it doesn't stop at that fence. Um,
Hmm.
Bigfoots can be experienced pretty much anywhere that there's resources and habitat and not a lot of adverse interaction. So anywhere that may have something anomalous, as well, usually has less human activity, either through its reputation or legend and myth and lore, things like that, or it's how rugged it is, or how dark it is, or how there's no resources available, or whatever these things that limit people from going to places. Those are
Hmm.
going to be better suited for an animal that has no issues like we do to occupy, because they're not going to get messed with. So, and as well, areas that may have had Bigfoots and things in the past and had a lot of crazy things happen, um, are also utilized by people who want to put stuff to keep it secret, because
Right.
either legend, lore, or danger keeps people out of that area. So they could tend to run together.
Hmm.
And as well, I think even with the ancient connection, I think that humans, the Bigfoot species, are, I think many forms of humans, not just modern human, and what we consider Bigfoot is it's another human, um, because it's a bipedal primate that makes it a human, regardless of what anyone likes to think of, pro or con. It just is the way it is. But I think
Right.
there was other species of humans running around as well, and they're not well represented or represented at all in the fossil tree, but that shouldn't be expected. So an average would be in about one in every 1,500 species would actually ever show up as a fossil. So how many hominins were running around at these times? And I believe they all had
Hmm.
interactions with off-world beings, and I think that there's a spiritual backdrop to all of that, to all of those humans, as well as off-worlders, ultra-terrestrials, potentially from inside of our planet or occupying other realms of our planet. I think all these things have a spiritual nature. And if they're dark and dirty, well, they're going to have a dark and dirty spirit. If, so when we think of ghosts, we automatically think, oh, that's Uncle Barney or that's whoever, or that's a malevolent, that's a bad, demonic entity. But we still put a human attribution to this. We don't understand what a demon or an angel would be. Anytime anybody's ever seen an angel, they collapsed on their face and went unconscious, let alone what a demon would be. So it's certainly not this human thing that comes as Aunt Martha. It might come as Aunt Martha, but that's not what we're looking at. It's like Aunt Martha went evil and now she's a demon. We have to look at as well, what else is spiritual out there that has previous life entity or force still in existence? Does it stop at just the modern human? Does it extend to Bigfoot? Does it extend to 3 or 4 other types of early humans? What are we encountering when we're out there? What's the potential of these? Is it the spirit of an ultra-terrestrial? Are these things living beings? Are they spiritual beings? Are they somewhere playing in the realm between because of a natural ability or technology? I don't draw lines on any of it because I think we've experienced things in each of those realms. And what I think we realize is there's not a lot of difference in any of it anyway. So we tend to see 2 of these things and then paste them together and try to make a new creation. They're all already pasted together. That's what they already are. So to separate them is where we go wrong. We should look for the paranormal in all these normal things. That's why some people have heard me say that the paranormal is not my favorite term because I believe it's all normal. It's part of the natural order. It exists in this reality. So I believe that stuff is it might be odd to say that, the most, but once you've seen enough and you've been out there enough, you don't draw lines anymore. And you can't. Some of it you could mislead yourself and end up dead the next day. So you don't draw lines, at all anymore. It's just not what you do.
I mean, the longer I'm in this subject matter, I started out in this lane and now I'm on the highway now. You know what I mean? It's like all roads go to that there's a phenomena. There's a phenomena and it's everything is connected. We're all connected. Like you were talking about previously, to your point, that we're all energy, and we are all connected. And I'm a firm believer that, in order to do this, because we're already on the fringe, right?
Right.
We're all on the fringe of a fringe kind of thing in a way. So in order to do what you do and what I do and what all of us in this, community, what we do, you have to keep an open mind, because when you're going into it with a closed mind, you aren't going to really learn much.
Well, that's right there. You're taking the whole thing for science. So, science never studies the knowns. It doesn't do that. The whole point is to find out what the unknowns are.
Exactly.
And bring those into the realm unknown, but they have to declare themselves. So when people make declarations like in archaeology, they'll make up entire histories and stories, and they'll often dramatize what's going on in their own life or their culture, their own time, their own demographic, and they'll put this into the story. They'll draw conclusions that manner, and some get pretty ridiculous. And basically they'd have no story at all on a lot of it if they didn't. But people aren't okay with that. Everyone needs to fill in the gaps themselves, and that's where we go back to kind of like ego. If you don't know, leave it in I don't know, because you can make a conclusion, but is that the most logical conclusion? Did you honestly weigh all the potentials? And we do that with everything from cloaking to portals and the whole 9 yards, because we really don't believe in a lot of woo, even though I understand quantum physics, I understand interdimensions, I understand hyper physical technologies as far as the government and off-worlders, and I understand a lot of this stuff because I've been privy to a lot of things in the backside. So I have a different point of view than most people. But what we tend to do is grab a title or two that we hear, and in order to feel stable again, have some foundation, we'll attach to that. Because if not, the I don't know is too shaky. And maybe I need to form an opinion so I have a who I am in all this. So, but you really don't have to do that. And then don't feel shaky, because the details and the points of fact are around us. Sometimes they're not as glamorous as we might think. They might be simpler, but most of the time they lead to more complicated or even bigger things than we imagine. I think a lot of times we attribute traits to Bigfoot that just discredit them, because, yeah, it wouldn't even be special if they could just disappear at will. That's no big deal. I mean, because you can do that, you just do that. But what if you were so good that you could appear to disappear at will at any moment you want to? And you're just that good. You're just that good at psychology, at fooling the mind of the observer, and all these things that we may not be giving them credit for, that are true abilities, that take true. It's like what we say to a ninja. You know, a ninja could, dressed in black, hide in a white hallway, and nobody would see him. You know, he's broadcasting, I'm not here. He's broadcasting, and your mind and the filter and the scheme is believe it, and they erase him. What he's doing takes mastery. It's amazing at what he's doing. Well, if we just said, oh, well, he's just born that way and he has a natural ability, we're taking away a lot of what his mastery is and what he's, you know, the special thing to who he is. And I believe we do the same thing with Bigfoot a lot of the times. I believe that they're just so good. And there's reasons people want to attribute easy, simple answers to their abilities or to their own experience on what happens, because they usually almost never want to say, oh, well, I didn't see him because of my mind, or whatever, or, you know, they never put themselves as what might have been the faulted thing in that situation. Maybe he didn't just vanish. Maybe your mind helped him vanish to protect yourself. We don't know, so why would we draw that conclusion? So an honest person would just say, I don't know, he just disappeared. While another person who may need to feel comfortable with themselves, reduce their own fear, fit in with peers or whatever, might say, well, yeah, he dematerialized into another realm. When you don't really know where he went and what he did. Visually, you just know he's not there anymore. So, you know, and I think that we get skewed. And then when you have groups of people come together and want to familiarize themselves and have that group association, sometimes it's for ego, sometimes it's for reassurance, then they'll try to meld their conclusions together, almost to be polite with each other. You know, to fit in. We'll kind of bend it a little bit this way and this way till it becomes congenial and we'll all fit in. And then that starts to become a fact of the reality later on. And I think that's where we've got a lot today, is a lot of the facts are based on collective supposition and melding of these collective suppositions and reassurance, even though they may not have anything to do with what's really happening. And when we fill our glass, what can we pour into it? So when we've made those conclusions and we feel comfortable and we feel secure with this foundation we've created, does anyone want to wipe it away? You can't even add you can't even add the truth if the truth was different, because the glass is already full. So
really, really well put.
Yeah.
Interesting. I love it. Do you have anything else coming up? Any other expeditions that you got coming up, or conferences you're going to be at, or anything like that?
We don't have any locked down for certain. In January, we may be speaking up in Washington, but I don't know if they've locked that conference down or not. And that would be really nice, because we haven't done one up there. We've been wanting to do some presentations here in the Southwest or in, you know, Texas, things like that. We just haven't really attracted any of that attention yet, because, you know, we just don't put ourselves out there that much. Haven't written a book, you know, and a lot of the other things that get people on those lists. But we do have information to share and present. And so far, each time we've been told that what we bring to the table is completely different than what anyone else has ever presented before. That, you know, everyone's blown away. And because I've never really watched anyone else's presentations, I don't know what they do. We do what we feel we want to bring to the public. But we've got a couple more we want to do this year. You know, we've had some pterosaur sightings, some like little pterodactyls that were spotted. I got to personally, with two others, see one on our way back from Colorado.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, I've been hearing about them, you know, for the last, I'd say 4 to 5 months. So that's great that you saw them.
And we were talking about it right at that time, because we were coming down to the valley where we had a report a month before brought to us, a guy that saw one less than a mile from where we're at right now. And we were coming down in the valley. We're about 40 miles away from here. I was
Mm-hmm.
talking to those guys saying, well, this is where they're at. And wasn't 5 minutes later, a little small one went directly over the car and right next to us, about 15 feet off the
Wow.
ground, about 30 feet from us. So we got to see it real well, all three of us. So it was pretty cool. So we've got some other stuff adjusted around that. I'm wanting to get out because we also have reports of full-size ones that are taking livestock. And we've had a couple people approach us and say, it's not big cats taking our livestock. It's those damn giant birds. And then another guy found an
Oh,
egg hatch site up on a mesa in some real rugged country and wants to take us up there and show us where these eggs had hatched. And he said they
wow.
thought they were ostrich or something because they were so big. And but it's
Wow.
likely to be them. So we have enough coming together now that that's something we kind of want to do before it gets too cold this year or spring next.
Are there other cryptids that you've come across or that you have? I don't know. I'm going to just pick one. How about Dogman?
No, nothing like that. We no, and Dogman or whatever. I don't even know where to go with any of that yet. Only because I've heard of Goat Man, Bear Man, Dog Man,
Right.
and basically anything that an animal they can quickly associate with that's covered with hair, that's whatever, and
Mhm.
mix it with man. So the only consistent part of any of that I see is man. So I think a lot of that's misidentification. I
Mhm.
don't know, if anyone looks at a lot of the primates, are very dog-like. Look at a baboon, for instance.
Mhm.
Um, and others are very, very much like a dog. And if you were to see something like that, how would you equate it if it was, some form of a baboon hybrid or something like that?
Mhm.
Not sure what, some sound thing just went off. Don't know what. Oh, that might be your timing out. Um, but anyway,
Mhm.
so I really don't know what to believe about that. But yeah, I've done giant rattlesnakes. So we wanted to do more work on that this year. Probably not going to get to. I'll probably have to wait till spring next year or summer.
Mhm.
But this the big giant 25, 30-foot rattlesnakes that Spain recorded, and there's evidence of them here, and I've seen evidence of them myself. And I caught
Wow.
or we got to closely examine a 9 or 10 foot rattlesnake that unknown species, and I think it's the same thing. So we do work on that, and then
Wow.
we have raptors like what you'd have as a small raptor type dinosaur, 3 to 5 foot or
Mhm.
whatever, up on the four corners, and also down here where we're at as well. So we intend on and do a little work with those
Wow.
too. So
I hadn't heard about that.
yeah,
I hadn't heard about raptors.
yeah, and the four
Wow.
corners is they've 5 6 foot,
Okay.
4 or 5 6 foot whatever in that range, upright reptiles, and then down in these areas a little north of us they were like 3 feet
Wow.
tall, whatever they are. So
Do you think that any of these creatures, cryptids, do you think they're possibly responsible for some of the missing 411s? I mean, is that
um,
possible?
yeah, I think anything that's capable in the natural environment could potentially be right.
Mhm.
But I haven't personally. Now I know of witnesses that have seen small raptors, and one appeared to be aggressive, and the guy left, but it didn't jump on him or attack him or anything, and it was in a
Interesting.
position above him on a rock on a boulder,
Mhm.
and hissed at him, opened its mouth, hissed down at him, and he left. Um, so who knows?
Mm.
I mean, anything's possible. Um,
Right.
I'm by what I've seen throughout the years with the Bigfoot animals, I absolutely think that there's areas and some of those individuals that don't have a problem whatsoever about making a person disappear, and there's other individuals that never would. And
Right.
I think that absolutely does occur. I think that makes up for a big portion in some places. I think
Mhm.
that there's several different species of sentient beings that live inside our planet, whether it be deep down or even in the upper systems. Um, Several different types of things that I think that would or could take people, that do exist. What they call a rake, those are things that have been seen hundreds and hundreds of times. There's dozens of videos
Yeah.
that I don't believe are faked, of them, and then I've heard personal accounts too. And I used to think, oh wow, that's got to be an elderly, mangy, dying Bigfoot or something like that. Hairless and
Mhm.
stringy and lanky and grayish pinkish tone, and but now seeing enough of that stuff, no, I think that's something completely different. So yeah, I think that cryptids do make a big part of it, and as well off-worlders or extraterrestrials or ultra terrestrials, or yeah,
Right.
absolutely, yeah.
Interesting. We are just a little over an hour.
Hmm.
Would you like to take some questions maybe from the people in chat?
Yeah,
Would you be
absolutely.
open to that? All
Sure.
right, awesome. I've got one right here. Let's see. What are your thoughts on inner Earth?
Well, that's a pretty general question, but I absolutely believe that there's subterranean environments, um, and not from nothing gleaned basically from the internet or popular media or anything like that. More from backdoor reports I've heard from mining engineers and through mineral testing centers and things like that, that they've worked with individuals and groups and companies that have been down into places that are extremely vast, like we have a difficult time imagining. Same time, worked with a lot of the Spanish historical stuff that have talked about the inner Earth and what's down there, what they've encountered. Even in D. Ray Metallica, 1541, it was written for the King of France to get them up to par on all the mining technology, subterranean works, metals, and they describe creatures. There's only so many reasons that were ever justifiable to shut down an ancient mine, and like that, gas, hydrogen sulfide was one way. Of course, they would ventilate them; they wouldn't just shut them down usually. But they describe gas as being one thing. Extreme flooding would be another, or a species that they called subterraneous mantis, that was some
Hmm,
type of large mantis type being that they would break into every once in a while, deep mining, and then they would have to seal that tunnel up because of those things would present a danger. So yeah,
interesting.
so I absolutely believe that the inner Earth's a big deal, and who's done what and where and all that, who knows? But throughout the mass of it, yeah, I think there's a reality to it.
Okay, we've got Miss Jean Hudson. Robert, will you be coming back to Upper Michigan? And what did you think of the area that you visited? She's in Upper Michigan.
Mm. Well, nice. Well, we just went up this year in July, on July 30th, and did a conference up there in Chelsea. And I don't know when we'll be back or not. I hope to be invited to speak up there again. We've had a couple speaking invitations that didn't work out, and up there. So hope to soon. We really like the area, love the people, tremendous, tremendous people, very welcoming, polite. The research place we went was an experience. It was great. Love the forest up there. Like I said, it's a little less adverse than what we're used to, but it certainly is beautiful. And yeah, I mean, mosquitoes are great. Awesome mosquitoes.
If anybody else has questions, please put them in all caps. That way I can see them better. Strangelin asks, Robert, did you do any investigations into Sasquatch or other with J.C. Johnson in the Four Corners area when he was alive?
Yeah, JC was turned out to be a pretty good friend of mine. He brought us in to actively track on the deal with UNM Gallup. So when the University of New Mexico wanted to get field evidence and DNA and things like that, C4C was working with them, and then JC knew of my work. We had spoken probably on and off for a couple of years there. Got to know each other kind of good online.
Mhm.
Kindred spirit for sure, And so then JC brought us into the Four Corners stuff, and we did that year-long study for UNM up there, and worked with JC back and forth the whole time. So,
That's awesome.
mhm.
Any other questions, guys? I know someone was asking about earlier in the chat, but I try to just kind of save them, and I forgot to star it. Someone was asking about migratory patterns. Do you feel that Sasquatch have migratory or migratorial paths, or do you believe that?
I think that all human types did the same thing. So, if they were in an area surrounded by resources and comfort, and there was no reason, nope. I think that in different latitudes, longitudes, different regional aspects, I think that absolutely, either based on resource acquisition. So as the food sources change throughout the year, to follow those food sources around, whether it be gypsy moths or the deer or whatever it might be, that I do believe they do that. I believe that they go up and down altitudes in the winter And these aren't really beliefs. This is, I guess, what we've seen inferred through
Right.
evidence over time. This is what we've seen through evidence over time. That some do have large transient behavior and others don't. A lot of the individuals seem to be somewhat sedentary in nature, while someone else in the same family unit, we were finding his feet all over the damn place, where he's gone miles and miles and miles away from the family group, and the other like males just don't seem to do that. So I think that there's so many varied reasons that it wouldn't be a yes or no. I think that all of the
Right.
above apply based on the needs and individual.
Here's my son, his channel is called Supernatural Spectrum.
Nice.
Robert, where can I find more info on the dinosaurs? He's been obsessed with dinosaurs since he's been born, I think. So that probably really sparked his interest.
Well, so have I. So that's the first thing I ever drew when I was a baby, I guess, was dinosaurs. And it went up that way. So I don't know what he means is find more info on the dinosaurs. Does he mean what we've seen with dinosaurs and people?
Yeah, it's probably what I think he's talking about those raptors that you were just talking about.
Oh, the stuff that's still running around.
Yeah.
Well, you just have to basically Google search the Four Corners area of New Mexico, Navajo Reservation, their stories and tales. A lot of the stuff we get personal accounts and friends of friends, and I have some brothers up on the Navajo Reservation that I'm real tight with, and they've brought us some of these stories down and things like that. But it's basically local legend and local lore is what most of that information is. How much of it's been published, I don't know. I would imagine Ken Gearhart and others like that are Mr. Lyle Blackburn and others are good sources to at least get some base information. Yeah, some of their books. And
Okay. Don Moore says, Robert, do you see them in trees? In Virginia, they are seen in trees around a lake. Don, are you talking about Sasquatch? Are you talking about what,
pterosaurs or
pterosaurs? Yeah. Just clarify for me, hon. Right. Well, we're waiting
so I
on
can
that. Yeah.
I could answer anyway. So on either one of those, so we've never seen Bigfoots in the trees. We see lots of evidence of them being arboreal or using trees, both vertical, like this, the conifers like pines and things, and then deciduous as well, like cottonwoods and large oak. Flying petrosaurs. So no, so far everything we've seen with that has been flying, and not seen one on the ground or perched yet. But we have heard of them on the res. The executive director of the university shared a story with me where one was landing on the roof of these people's house at night and tearing shingles up and everything else, pretty big and heavy. And they were going to put a game cam on the chimney, I believe, to try to catch it. And it was doing that at night. It would come to roost on their house.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, another guy got picked up 3 feet off the ground by one at night, and then it dropped him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's scary.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, if he hadn't had a leather jacket on, it probably would have tore him up pretty good. They said it tore the leather up pretty good. So.
Wow. So what is your, and you've been doing this many, 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 many years, I know, and it's probably going to be a silly question in a way maybe, but what is your favorite piece of evidence? Your favorite piece of Sasquatch evidence that you have that is like your favorite, like either where you found it or how you found it or the size of it, or what's your favorite?
I guess most people would think it would be like our biggest footprint or hair or bite marks and I think probably, you said I have it sitting here. I think probably this, which is just, you can see it's a trackway of a couple of a baby.
Oh my word, how tiny.
Yeah, so, and you got the whole thing. So we cast it like this so you can see how the mud back here comes down at an angle where the whole thing went in from the wake.
Yeah.
This was actually in water. And I don't know if we get a side cast on the lighting or not, but yeah, so this was in water, and and we cast this one. I thought it was really cool just because
That's
it
amazing.
showed how they stepped one step over the other step,
Hmm.
and the shape of the feed, and we knew what baby it was from and everything. And being in water, it was
Hmm.
just one of those ones where it was going to be impossible, and I could actually get the step in the gait and how they planted and how the weight sank. And so I think probably this one, just because we know what it's from. It's from the
Yeah,
family unit we research a lot, and it's from one of the kids. And
that's
I think
amazing.
probably that, just because it's odd and it's something that we may never get again. That's that
Right.
nice
That's super
that
rare.
shows all
Yeah.
that's where, because if it was dry earth, the compression, the weight down on it, you can see how the
Hmm.
weight changed in the material, and it tells a whole story about whatever's took those steps, not just the regulars. So I think it was just kind of an
Yeah.
exceptional piece.
How often do you think they have offspring? Do you think they're, like women, like, I don't know, 9 months and, maybe they could have a baby once a year or
Oh well, I can just tell you from what we've seen inferred through evidence was every couple of years. There
every
would be
couple of
it'd be
years?
an infant introduced again, and so who knows why? Probably because in the first year that
Mm.
the female's probably literally arm in arm busy with that offspring, so she's probably not acting in the same
Hmm.
manners as she would if she wanted to get a baby and reproduce. So,
Gotcha.
who knows how long that takes, but that's just what we've kind of seen. Because over the years that we studied that group, and it wasn't like they kept having children. They had a little one apparently, and then within 2 years after that, they had another little one. And then we didn't see sign after that of having another one. But that's the spread that was between those two. And we don't really have any evidence that the same female had both of those young, even though that's our
Hmm.
assumption. But
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's, to me, it's fascinating to learn about their family life. To me, I just think it's fascinating, and and that's another thing that just drove me in, like, into your research, because you do that, that behavior you're
mhm.
seeing, you're documenting the behavior, not just the evidence, and that's, for me, I just think
Yeah,
that's amazing.
people tend to think that we are out there trying to get a film of Bigfoot. And
Yeah,
that's
like that.
we already kind of beyond that. We understand
Right.
the propensity of that occurring, and we understand that it's just as
Mhm.
likely we'll get that doing the other work as we would if that's what we were focused on. You're no more likely to get it one way or the other. Because
Yeah.
the moment you're as prepared as you think you are, the moment you're not prepared, there it is, and then it's gone. It happened to me
Right.
up there in Colorado, quarter to 11 in the
Mhm.
daytime, had all the cameras off, because why in the world would you have all the camp cams on in the middle of the day like
Mhm.
that? And yeah, I looked up, twig snap. I'm the only one sitting there. I look across the fire or fire pit, or in, like I said,
Yeah.
almost midday, and there was one standing there and bolted off between the trees. And it was the same one that had come the night
Wow.
before, and it was gone, just gone. Ghosted me immediately. It was so good, and but yeah, I mean, so we're totally prepared. Had cameras and trees and had cameras everywhere.
Sure.
Yeah, right then, boom. So yeah, it doesn't even give you an advantage even thinking you've got it, And so we don't tend to try to go out there getting
Yeah.
that. What we want to do is understand them, and so
Mhm.
I try not to. I try to get close to them so everything's real fresh.
Right.
Sometimes we don't try to get in with them, but we do try to raise the likelihood that we end up where they are when they are, and just
Mhm.
because that's a whole nother aspect. So what I'm really interested in is what do they do when we're not around? How do they live? Who are they when there's
Right.
no people involved? And so we can't
Right.
do that if we get to them and disturb them, and then we're getting what they do with us, and which is good too. And I'm not saying that's not good. It's really good to have that understanding, but more so, you know, um, who's going out and getting mice or getting rabbits, and who's running this way and going that way, and who's going through the thick brush, and who more or less gets in the open, and so
Yeah.
getting those kind of visuals and understanding, and where do they all go to the bathroom, and do they all go together, and so
Mhm.
we learned that they do, at least in this group, and things, and what they're careful about, and you can very well get to know them by doing that, because you see them hiding their prints, or you see them doing things where you understand that, wow, they're nervous about leaving prints, You even
How do they hide their prints? What are some of the ways you've seen that they
by
hide
same
them?
same way that people and even a couple animals are aware. Like wolves are real weird. They'll do things like that, um, stepping in places that don't leave prints. A lot of the adults will purposefully walk around do this, and this, not to leave a print in anything. And
Mm,
where you'll see the smaller from 14 inches and down being a lot less careful. And what it is that they're real haphazard when they're really small, 4.5, 4.25 inch up to 9, 10 inch, something like that. They're pretty haphazard. They'll go just about all over the place,
mm,
and then up to like 14, you very rarely find them. And then above 14, you start getting 16, 17, then you almost never find them. And then when you're talking 18 to 20, 22, 23, they're,
mm,
it's almost impossible. And those reasons are is because they get good. So they're learning about how to avoid making prints, how to avoid leaving prints.
mm,
And I think that they track. And so they're well aware of their own tracks. And because we see them, like I said, doing that. So we've seen them having to collect like a little one that runs right out in the mud, totally exposed, and then a big one take a step or two out in the mud and then just grab it. And then when it comes back, step right back in its own footprint again. So it didn't
um,
even want to make a new print. It stepped back in its own print or over its own print, then hit the bank. And so
interesting.
that tells us something about what he's thinking about is get the kid
Mm-hmm.
out of the mud. I mean, just pick him straight up, stop that marking that's happening, and make as least amount of mark as I can doing it. And so
Wow.
when you've seen that a lot, it just dictates something to you. So even
Yeah.
leaving marks in the sand, we've seen where the kids are playing in the sand, and then apparently a big one comes up and just
Mm-hmm.
picks them up. And sometimes we
Wow.
think, are they discouraging leaving spirals and lines and things that a little one's sitting there messing with doing in the sand?
Mm-hmm.
Are the big ones discouraging that? Like, don't leave any sign we're here, we exist. So
Do you think that they spend a lot of time being quad, like,
yeah,
do you think they spend a lot of time doing that?
most of the time when they're not moving from point A to point B, yeah. That's what we really see it most of the time. So, and even when they're going biped, they'll go biped, then drop to quad, and go back to biped, back to quad, and do it like it's a fluid thing, like
Interesting.
it's not a big deal to be on either one or a
Right.
combination of it. They just kind of move fluidly as that goes. So whatever is benefiting them as they're traversing. So,
Mm-hmm. Wow. Thank you.
mhm.
This has been amazing tonight. I've learned so much. I want to have you on like 10 more times. Like, my gosh,
Yeah,
like it's thank you.
no,
Thank you,
it's my
Robert.
pleasure. Just let me know, and we'll be happy to
Yeah.
come back in. We've
Yeah.
always got more to share. So,
Oh yeah. I mean, anytime you want to come, anything you need to promote, anything everybody in the link, the description for the show has all of it's got your Facebook, your Patreon. Make sure you guys go check him out on Patreon. You know how I support Patreon. Like, I rather see everybody over on Patreon getting supported because I feel like that's a platform that is really where the researcher gets the most benefit
yeah, yeah,
from, in
yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah, we see a lot
And
of people leeching off. I hate to say leeching, boy, what a bad word, right? But literally leeching off the enigma. And if more of it was going to boots on the ground, true boots on the
yes,
ground,
true
that
beats.
people, it's not
Yes,
trying to have experiences, but trying to get information, I think that we'd go a
right.
lot farther, a lot faster. So I agree.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And,
But
and I want our
thank
people
you.
to know as well, whoever's watching ours. So we have a link to the host channel, the NonnaBoss Continuum. I want you guys to go over there and
Thank
check that
you.
out. Sub her, the great person. And I appreciate you've been wonderfully polite. You asked great questions. That's been awesome.
Thank you.
I do
Thank
some shows, and basically they say, "Well, what do you want to tell the world?" And it's kind of like, well, there wasn't anything specifically I wanted to tell the world, but whatever. So I really appreciate that. It allows me to
Thank you.
to present a little bit better.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not going to say I stalk you because I don't stalk you, but I'm all over your channel. Like, and I've been watching your channel for a very long time. And I mean, there was one weekend when I don't know, last year sometime, and I just was binging your channel. I was like, oh my God, like, there was just so much information. So, guys, please go check Robert's, YouTube out. I mean, how long have you been on YouTube? 14 years or something? Like,
Yeah, something like that. And we kind of dropped
yeah.
off. We dropped off the list, so to speak. So you can, if people go look,
Mhm.
you can see. Um, as soon as we got involved and got dealt with by a state senator and a syndicate news and trying to stop our research and things like that, YouTube took us from views in the 20s and 30,000s down to 700 to 1,000. Pulled all
Oh
our
my
subscribers
gosh.
and things like that. And people think it's a joke. But you can
Oh
look all
my
through the
gosh.
comments, and people are always in there going, "Hey, man, they unsubscribed me. I'm back subscribed again for the fourth, fifth time, or whatever." So
Wow.
we had a lot of fuel early on, and we're moving pretty hard. And then we backed off, not because of that reason, just because we were pulling back, doing our own thing, a little more serious,
Sure.
and
Mhm.
weren't trying to run the popularity game at that time or whatever. So I appreciate the attention, appreciate the heads up. We do want to get our base back up because we actually do have information. I've set, I've only shared a tiny fraction of all the stuff that we have on a lot of various enigmatic subjects, whether it be
Mhm.
ancient cultures or cryptids or whatever. And we're actually
Right.
sitting on quite a lot that we were waiting to have a big enough audience before we put it out. And the reason
Right.
being is because if we put it out now, other people with a big audience keep grabbing it. They turn it
Yes.
around. They put themselves in the middle of it. They make bad conclusions. It's not what we were trying to put across, not the truth
Mhm.
we were trying to show. And then they put it
Yeah.
out, and we don't have a chance to ever fix it. So we're caught in a conundrum here. We
Yep.
want to release the information, but we feel we can't release the information because if not enough people see where it comes from, it's going to
The
be
context.
it's going to be interpreted and changed, and all it's going to be used for is to pump
Right.
other people up. And we've had that. We've heard our stuff said on stage so many times without anyone ever saying, hey, I got this from Kryder.
Right.
When even behind the scenes, those very same people even told me, "Man, I learned a lot from you. I got your deal about tracking and the little we learned that." But then when there's just that kind of look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me deal, and we sit in the background so
Yeah.
much. We're the quiet guy in the background who's got the goods, but he's not saying anything because he does not feel like why does he's got the goods? What does he have to go up there and start shaking his ass for so everyone sees him, right? Um,
Yeah.
so
No, I get it. I get it. I see it all the time too. I see it all the time. And believe it or not, I talk about it a lot on my channel about how there's a lot of self-serving, um, you know, you know,
yeah.
I don't need to say
And
it.
I'm not really
You know
putting
what I'm talking about?
anybody. Don't mean to bash anybody even for being like that, but it's just an example of what we have to swim through in order to
Mhm.
bring something to the people. It's not just
Correct.
swimming water. We're swimming through hot, backwards flowing mud half the time, trying to carry this
Mhm.
over our heads to bring it up to the people on the other bank. And
Yeah.
so it's just the more of that there is, which I got no problem. Everybody needs to feel special. I think it's great to find any way you can to do that. It's awesome, but sure makes it tough. Some of it sure makes it
There's
tough.
a I believe there's a lot of researchers such as yourself that are sitting on a
Hmm.
lot.
Hmm.
I mean, I interviewed Shane Carpenter from Ozark Mountain Sasquatch, and he's very similar. His research is, very similar to yourself, where he is him and his research partner here, Randy Harrington, they approach it in the same way, and they keep things very close to their chest, because they're trying to, just like you, think out of the box with very different types of different technologies and
Hmm.
ways of catching specific behaviors. I mean, Shane had shared on my channel that he was only just a few feet away from a juvenile, and he talked about that experience. So there are researchers who are out there that are looking for the truth, but they're not sharing all of it because, like you said, you have to be careful, because you really, in order to present it correctly, there needs to be context, and there needs to be, a specific way that the story needs to be read, right? So I I appreciate that. I do. And I know that most of this community respects that.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so too. And a lot of people are scared of ridicule, and they think that's the reason.
Hmm.
And with us, it's certainly not that. We've whatever. It
Right.
doesn't bother me a single bit. You can do all you want. Um, it is literally watching what we've done, coming up everywhere else, and literally the misinterpretation is really what boggles my mind and is the most frustrating for me personally, because the fact is declared by itself. We present the evidence, and we also present uh, the potential for what that fact is establishing. That series of facts. What are they saying? What is the declaration? And this is what we see flipped around by people who don't understand what they're sharing. They take the
Mhm.
information, they present the information, but they themselves have never tried to involve themselves and get in depth with what we're presenting.
Right.
Here's the conclusion, and based on the evidence, and they'll not do that. They'll often
Mhm.
present the evidence and then they'll change the conclusion to fit in one
To
another.
fit their
Yeah,
narrative.
and it's upsetting because we don't have a
Yeah.
narrative. The narrative is being created by the evidence. That's it.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
really, in a weird way, who wants to be wrong? So most people don't want to be wrong, so they'll continually to
Mhm.
badger the falsehood. With us, man, we're scared to present any falsehood because it's going to come back and bite us in the ass, and in a sense, we're going to be
Right.
wrong, and we don't want to be seen that way because we want to be trusted. Because we realize there's so many people out there looking for answers in the world globally, not just on Bigfoot, but everything else, that
Right.
they need to have someone that they can trust that's going to bring them that interpretation, whatever is declared by itself. So they're not steered by someone's wants and wills, agenda, ego. It just
Mhm.
needs to be that natural progression from the field to the people. A lot of people can make
Yeah.
their own off our information. I leave it up to a lot of people can make their own conclusions. But what I've usually found is by the time it's said and done, they're right back in the center going, yeah, well, there you go. That's what the deal is. So,
Mhm. Oh, thank you.
mhm.
I can't wait. I can't wait to see some of this evidence that'll hopefully see the light of day at some point. I'm excited. I'm excited for all these things that you're looking into and you're investigating and you're researching. I wish you all the luck in the world, and many blessings to you. It's I think that you're amazing, and what you do and how you go about it is deserves the utmost respect and appreciation, and thank you.
Well,
Thank
thank you,
you. Thank you.
thank you for the attention. It means something because that's
Yeah.
why we do it. We want
Yeah,
people to benefit. So,
absolutely. Thank you, Robert. Have a wonderful evening. And I hope that someday when maybe you've got something you might want to share here or there, you just reach out to me and I'll have you on.
well, anytime if you want to, you got an open space or whatever, and you want us to show back up or are curious as to where we're at, yeah, feel free to reach out and hit me up. It's been a pleasure.
I will. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Okay, so wow, I can't believe that camera came on. So, how's everybody doing this evening? Um, we are off that broadcast, and now we've switched back to our standard broadcast. I'll try to get some of the chat addressed here. Let's see what we've got going on. World Bigfoot Radio. Great to see you, Duke, Vanessa, Deborah Irwin, Digger Dog, Illinois Sasquatch. Wow, awesome. Trying to get everybody here. Brian Merrick. So amazing stuff, you guys. Amazing stuff. All right. 30 Act 6 USMC. Good to see you here. Been with us a long time. Appreciate it. Shalini Sampson. And I'm going to take that question. Thanks, Shalini. You said, Rob, you heard them talk. Yeah, absolutely. We have heard them talk. We heard them talk even on the lodge trip. There was a couple of them talking up on the hill up above us. It was kind of cool to listen to. We've also recorded them arguing, things like that, in the past. I'm not sure we have those old records anymore. But yeah, so we have heard them talking. A lot of times we can't hear like the words or what's being said. We can't make that out, so to speak. But as far as the speech, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to go back through a little bit of these and see if we have some questions that need to be investigated. Yeah, you're right, brother. I need to write a book, Ron. You're right. I got a lot of things to put down. I've got my outlines and things written, but I just haven't got to that point yet. Deborah Irwin So Rob, what's the most paranormal thing you've experienced with ancient digs? UFOs and spirits and Bigfoots, same thing. But probably overall UFOs. I got nuked on a treasure dig when we were doing some deep excavation in a series of faults, and I came out of the ground and got nuked by a chrome ball in the sky on site, and lost half the hair on my head for 2 years, lost all my eyebrow and eyelashes and mustache and everything here about 3 inches high and all the way to the back of my head for a full 2 years, and destroyed all the electronics in my truck, destroyed all the electronics from the dig, stuff like that at the same time. So apparently I got EMP'd, but that was by a chrome sphere. I couldn't tell how big it was. It was anywhere from 3 feet to 20 foot in diameter, because the altitude, who knew? And so that would probably be the strangest, I think. Let's see what else we got here. Not too many questions. Dwayne Ayers, I appreciate all the compliments, though. Big Racer, Oracles and Beyond. And I really want to appreciate and show appreciation to our Patreons too. Thanks to you guys for sticking with us. We lost someone recently. I hope it wasn't anything too difficult or bad, but we really appreciate it. We have very few people that step up to support our work, and we really don't get much for it. So, but what they do is great toward keeping our platforms running. So we haven't quite got to where the streaming system and the internet and things like that are self-sufficient. But we really appreciate you guys taking a major bump off that for us. That's big. Without you, I don't know if I'd be able to stay on or not. Not with this good stream quality and things like that. So, thanks you guys for compliments. Wonderful show. Okay, well, you asked, Ron, that's Ron, asking if Ron had anything with his experiences in Texas yet. I need to have Ron back on with me again. It's been too long. Vanessa Doe, appreciate that. And I hope people do learn a lot from my videos. That's why I don't keep the tracking and the little things like that to myself. I tell people so they can repeat that and have their own successes. We could use those things to, quote, quote, get us ahead in the research field and things like that, but we're not really down with that. We don't really care. You end up ahead by doing good works. Don't need to keep away the secret from everyone. Ranger, you were subscribed. Oh, great. Well, yeah, everybody that's seeing this, make sure to go subscribe, resubscribe, do whatever you need to do, because, even if you subscribe, the chances are you maybe have been removed or maybe you're removed in the future. So, Jeb Baldwin, appreciate the compliment. How long was I with JC Johnson? A few years that we talked, and we probably talked for, probably since 2008 or 9, and then we started working together in, I believe, 2015. So, and then 2017, I think we finished on that stuff. Oh, great. MM Lands Birdies, thank you for that compliment. Yeah, we try to share the understanding so that everybody can have their own great success. So there's certainly a lag between what I'm doing and saying and you guys' comments, but I will take a couple more questions, and then we'll be wrapping this pretty quick. So Deborah Irwin says, what ancient sites, otherworldly links in your experience? What ancient sites? Most of the big ones have odd things happening. Kaskurza, that's the third step, or the third world of the Hopi. We found that in 2004. That has some pretty odd things going on there. One of the sites we call 0 Point, that burns up equipment in our hands and attracts lightning and a bunch of other stuff like that. It has a huge what seems to be a proton field being emitted from the hill. Usually you have real odd spiritual stuff. I don't know if we call it cursed, but there's usually some type or another of, let's say, entity or consciousness associated with most of the big treasure sites, and whatever they are don't seem to like anyone messing with their stuff. So we've had quite a bit of that kind of crap. Andrea Bronkow, thank you for the consideration and the appreciation. WBR, yeah, thanks a lot. Hey man, you too. There's a lot of people that are up there in the lead lap. Just most of them are pretty quiet. You know that. And the loud ones aren't in the lead lap. You know that too. So I had a question about when you think they reach maturity and how tall do you think they are? And that one I can answer pretty well because we've done a lot of that research on that. Basically, maturity, let's say when you're going to leave the nest, so to speak. Let's say you're going to college, but you're still living in mom and pop's house when you get out of college. That kind of thing, or your first job and your first apartment, and you might have to move back home. That type of deal right there is feet between 15 inch, 17 inch. So somewhere in that realm, up to 9.5 foot tall, something like that, maybe even 10. We see that they are about that phase. And then we don't see many big prints beside in the main groups besides the alpha male and alpha female. It seems like everybody kind of does their own thing before that. So we believe that size is probably in the late teens, maybe 20 years old or something. Anywhere between 15 and 20 that they reach in foot sizes to 16 to 17 inch, and then they're maturing out at that point. So you have any more questions in the live chat, and I'll hit those before we wrap this. Have I been in the caves of the Grand Canyon? No, I haven't. But we did work to everyone says, oh, we located the caves, whatever. We did work to do some location on those things, and discovered where like they had the winch mounted and stuff like this to access the Kincaid system. But we never have gone out there to do it because in the particular area where we want to go is completely off limits. Not even the Hopi are supposedly allowed in that spot. So I would like to do that though, big time. Do I think I could figure out Oak Island? Yeah, personally, and not just to be arrogant, but I think that it would have taken a year to get into that. Doing what they're doing, piecemealing it, underestimating who built it, the potential, the prowess, and the abilities of the people who concealed things in the past, being surprised at every turn, basically kind of screwing things up, trying to do things piecemeal instead of just going for broke right off the get-go. And we've already encountered sets like that were death trapped with both water traps and hydrogen sulfide. It's not uncommon. So they didn't know or what to expect or how to deal with any of this stuff. And then they took it for granted that they wouldn't do immense amounts of work. People that mined, if you wanted a water source, for example, that was a mile away, it was nothing for the ancients and even in more recent times for mining to mine that mile over to a lake that's sitting on a mountain and tap that lake for water for your mine. So to think that everything's just on that little island is kind of naive and ignorant just a little bit. Because and then to not understand that the whole thing is that the only way you're going to go into a system like that is to go into it under pressure, is pressurize the system, then you can push all the water out and make entry. That's how we do, that's how the Hudson Bridge was built. The first time they ever figured out the bends was not diving, it was during construction, because they'd go under the mud, pump all the air out, and then build. And they used to do that, build underwater. So that they should have done the same thing to that system. I think that we could have figured out, between myself and a couple other experts that I work with over the years, I think that Oak Island would have been pretty short work, to be honest with you. Okay, so at this time, that's all I'm seeing on the chat questions. Oh, no, here we go. Shalini Sampson says, Rob, have you worked outside the USA on Bigfoot? No, we have not worked outside the USA on Bigfoot. Not yet. But I would love to go to Mexico and South America. Both has the same type of creatures described, even in the Amazon. I would love to try that. And Canada, of course. We've been to Alaska, but it wasn't doing Bigfoot research per se, so I can't claim that to fame. So no, nowhere north of Washington State and nowhere south of New Mexico. Okay, so that's what we're coming up with now. See if we have any more questions pop up on here. Like I said, I've got a couple minute lag time. But probably won't push this too awful far. I will say apologize for the delay in the beginning but Streamlabs, like I said, wasn't showing the stream. Everything had to be reset, and then the audio didn't come up and find that microphone. So, but nobody missed much. It was pretty much just my introduction, and like I said, just a little bit of talk about why they did big tree damage in the Sandias. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate the optimism. Okay, with that, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap the stream up. I appreciate everybody showing up this evening. Really hope you guys beam in for the next one. Look forward to the Colorado expedition video that'll be out soon. We came into a problem and lost about 150 gigs of video, actually everything. The 250 clips that I had already made to produce disappeared. So I was able to retrieve about 23 gigs of video, most of the important stuff, from a cloud server that I had posted to share it. So I did that, and I'll be reproducing that whole thing. It won't have, I was going to put in a lot of the camp footage and a lot of the bee footage from how things go and what's going on. I won't have a lot of that to do that. And it's going to be basically the highlights. But we're going to be having that posted the next few days. So I want everybody to look forward to that. Yeah, that's it. Shane Gabbard, how you doing, buddy? Andrea, Robert Duvall, good to see you too, bro. Don't know if you guys are just getting in here, if you've been in here, but anyway, if you're just getting in, go review it. It's a pretty good show, and good people that I did it with. A lot of people I'm kind of, she seems really cool. So you guys go check her channel out and it's listed in the description below. So in our link, we have a link to her as well. We have a link to our Patreon and stuff like that. If you want to support the stream itself, you can go right there below in the description bar, and it's going to have a Streamlabs link. You can go there and just make a donation to the subscription itself, or you can support our teams, or you can buy a t-shirt or some cool merch, and we'll have out a little more of that pretty soon. So everybody have a good time. Look me up on Facebook. Look me up on YouTube here. Feel free to chat with us. Subscribe. Please resubscribe if you're not. If you want to reach down and give us a like, that would certainly help get this stuff pushed out so more people can see it. The more people that see our information, we get an audience big enough, we'll start dumping more on the table, a lot more. But like I said, we need to get the audience built so that other people who have those big audiences can't take what we've got, reinterpret it,